Good morning. Welcome into Teach Me Bees. I am Scott Callentine, beekeeper, and we're here without my co-host, Dave Westcott. He is under the weather today, but we are here with Victor from HiveIQ. Victor, go ahead and say hello to our audience.
Hello, beekeepers. Good morning.
Yes. Um, So I met you maybe a month or so ago at the Washington State Bee Conference, and you had this booth set up for this thing called Hive IQ. So we're going to talk about that, what it is, and I'll let you go into that. But before we get there, can you maybe share with the audience a little bit about yourself, how you got into beekeeping, and you have kind of a cool accent. Where are you from, and
Sure.
where are you at now? What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a commercial beekeeper from Australia, third generation. So my grandmother started us in beekeeping, our family in the 1920s, and then my dad picked it up, and then I sort of went straight into beekeeping out of school,
Mm.
professional beekeeping that is. So we ran about 2,500 hives with my dad. So that's kind of my background. And but then we back in 2010 is kind of the, I guess, turning point for us where I'd had a break for a few years and I got tricked back into beekeeping actually by my now business partner Dave, and it doesn't take much tricking beekeepers to get back into bees. By the
Mm.
way, once you've been a beekeeper, it's kind of in your blood. So
Yeah.
only needs that little tip and you're back. so so it took me about 5 minutes to make my mind up after he asked me if I wanted to start a beekeeping business. So we got back into it. We started with about 160 hives, 10 frame, Langstroth wooden hives, just the
Mhm.
standard off the shelf stuff. Very first winter we had was cold and wet in Australia, if you can believe that. Australia does get cold. We do get down in low temperatures in winter. And we saw the usual stuff that just brought back all the old memories of the bees struggling in winter, mold growing on the wall frames in the brood box, bees
Mhm.
clustered up. And I said to my business partner, there's got to be a better way. So that kind of, we've got to find a way of giving our colonies an insulated home to live in, the same as we expect for ourselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nobody lives in an non-insulated hives these days. So that kind of started us on a journey. We set up two apiaries, two research apiaries. When we expanded, we went to two apiaries then, and we had 120 hives in each apiary. We had 60 wooden hives and 60 polystyrene hives that we sourced out of Europe back in 2011, about 14 years ago.
Mm.
And very quickly, we discovered that insulation really, really matters to colony health and colony productivity. And those polystyrene hives literally outperform the wooden hives by a factor of at least 35% in honey production. The queens live longer or last longer, stay productive longer.
Mm.
The far less colony loss over winter. They transport better. The list is long, very, very long list of benefits. And so that kind of started us on a journey. The problem we had back then was the hives weren't very optimized for commercial beekeeping.
Mm.
Their form factor was awkward. They were too big. So in a 10 frame configuration, the wall thicknesses are double that of wooden hives. So that you just can't fit enough on a commercial truck. And the durability, they just lacked the durability we needed. So that sort of set us on a path to where we are now. So we have the HiveIQ system. It's been developed over the last 12, not really, 14 years of
Mm.
evolution, but really aggressively in the last 6, 7 years. We hired our own industrial designers and did a lot of prototype, a lot of testing. So yeah, basically invested everything we had into this thing, and here we are. We've got the HiveIQ system, and we're continuing to develop that. So we're excited about what the future holds
Mm.
for the product, for the system, the beekeeping system, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Maybe real quick, can you describe what is beekeeping like in Australia? Like our audience is probably mostly North American, Pacific Northwest. We just imagine, at least I imagine, warmth, heat. But you said
Right.
like that winter was really hard, and that really inspired Hive IQ to begin. What's it like in Australia? How's it different maybe from here?
Well, it's probably important to differentiate between hobbyist or enthusiast and commercial.
Mm,
So, and they're very different. In Australia, the beekeeping style in the commercial space is kind of similar but very different at the same time. So here, most beekeepers run a double brood box. In Australia, it's almost unheard of. We run a single brood box.
mm,
The way we manage our honey stores through the season to keep our bees healthy and productive, and not be in a situation where the bees are desperate,
hmm
run out of stores, the honey flow, the nectar flow is stopped, weather's moved in. What do? The bees are starving. So we have a system where we take the top super and under super, take the top super, under super. So it's a little different, whereas because we don't have two brood boxes, all right. So we
hmm
always make sure the benefit of having two brood boxes is you've got obviously honey stores in those boxes.
Yeah.
We've got one brood box. In our insulated hives, they use all of those frames for brood. Unlike a wooden hive, which is poorly insulated, you'll rarely see brood out on your wall frames
hmm
in a wooden hive,
Yeah.
because the cost to the colony to keep the brood temperature correct at that outside wall, even in summer or winter, doesn't matter, is high. And so the bees choose to move in a couple of frames. So usually the wall frames and maybe the next one in doesn't have brood at all, most often. So we have one brood box. They put a lot of brood in it. We get plenty of bees out of one brood box. We overwinter with a full super of honey on.
Mm.
As we come into spring, we when that box on when we the season's lit up, and straight after almonds, we come off almonds, we lift the super up and we put a wet super underneath. So one that we extracted at the end of last season, but we kept it sealed and wet. So it's sticky, if you like. We call them stickies. You call them
Okay.
wet.
Yeah.
And then we get into this cycle where as soon as that middle box is half to 2/3 full, what it means is the top box is always full, because bees fill from the top down. So we
hmm
take the top box away, take the bees out of the top box. We lift the middle box up. We put another wet box underneath. That's so sticky underneath.
Okay.
We continue that throughout the whole season. So that's different. I think that's different to how US commercial beekeepers operate. That's one difference. Hobbyists are similar, probably similar to the US, I think. But, our season's different. Our nectar flows are a lot different. We've got 800 species of eucalyptus trees that grow in Australia, native to Australia.
Mm.
And so we've got a huge flora environment, depending on where you are. But it can be feast or famine. So a lot of our flora environments can be monocultures, so we can have all of one species of eucalyptus, and it only flowers once every 3 to 4 years, right? So
Yeah.
so the eucalyptus trees have a very different flowering cycle. Not every eucalyptus flowers every year. Very few do, actually. So I don't know. Does that give you?
Yeah, I think that's good. That gives our audience a little bit of a picture of beekeeping on the other side of the world. Um, I know that Australia didn't really have Varroa until very recently. Um, so bummer. That sucks that you guys got it now.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Big
Uh,
bummer. Double
yeah.
bummer.
With your boxes, you mentioned that they increase 35% kind of minimum threshold of production, honey, survival rate. Um, could you speak to those factors? How do you measure
Sure.
that you have 30% more honey or you have 30% more survival rate? And then has there
Yeah.
been an impact with Varroa using the boxes? Has there been any kind of
I think it's
maybe
a bit
improvement
early,
or
a little bit early to tell on the Varroa situation, but there is research that indicates that sealed cavity gives the bees the ability to maintain high CO2 levels. I think Varroa might really struggle anything above 5% CO2,
Hmm,
whereas the bees comfortably run at 7. That's what I'm reading. So
okay.
there's potential there for, I think, some Varroa assistance with the colony and maintaining their Varroa population. Also pressure. Dr. Derek Mitchell from the UK talks about the pressurized environment not being great for mites either, because naturally in a sealed cavity, which is what our hive does, the bees, the warm humid air coming off the cluster naturally creates pressure in the hive. So it pressurizes because it can't escape, so building pressure, and so naturally there's a pressurized environment in our hives, and I think that's potential. But I think it's a bit early days to talk about that.
Yeah.
With regards to the honey production, it's pretty common sense stuff. If you think about a colony of bees, it's just like a population, it's a workforce, and they've got to do certain things to survive. The temperature is critical. That the talk that Scott Debman gave at the conference in Washington was fascinating. How even across the one brood frame, the bees have to maintain different temperatures for different stages of brood. And that's insane, And then we go put them in a non-insulated box, punch a hole in the top to vent the top, and expect the bees to survive. So common sense tells us if we can take care of the primary thermal environment with just high levels of insulation and a sealed chamber, the bees we're freeing up resources to go and do other productive things like hive hygiene.
You mentioned with the hives an increase in like 35% production with honey, bee survival, those kinds of things. Can you maybe explain how do you know that, and what are obviously it's great to have more bees, but how do you measure something like that? And why is that such a big deal?
Well, for commercial beekeeping, it's you measure it in your bank balance. So when you go out and harvest your honey and take a round of honey off all your hives, and you come to your insulated hives and they're full and ready to go, and then your wooden hives, you pop the lid and they've still got another week or two to go yet before they're ready. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so for the hobbyist, I think it's probably not so important to get 35% more honey, but so that's kind of how you measure it with your bank balance when you're a commercial.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? So, and it's common sense. So when you think about it, if the bees, one of the most important thing bees have to do is maintain brood temperature to raise young brood. So one of the most important things for a colony of bees to survive is to raise brood, and they need a really high brood temperature in their brood nest of around 35 degrees Celsius. I think that's 90 in the 90s Fahrenheit. And it takes bees to do that. So if you put them in a non-insulated environment with vented tops, the bees have to work exceptionally hard to get to brood temperature. So that it consumes large quantities of their population just to do that. So when you free all that population up because you've taken care of a large chunk of that thermal work for them, by providing a highly insulated environment, those bees now can do other productive things. They go do hive hygiene, so that you chalk brood and diseases like that are diminished, almost non-existent, because the bees are keeping that hive so clean. They've just got all these extra resources. They can do work like that. They forage more. They can do better self-defense. You think about, they don't cluster up anywhere near as much, if at all, depending on your climate. So if you look at the cluster temperature, the ambient temperature for when colonies begin to cluster in a wooden hive is about 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And anything from there down, it gets worse for the bees, because the wall thickness on a wooden hive is less than R1, really. It's probably barely R.7 in insulation value, plus not to mention it's a pretty leaky box in between the joints and etc.
Yep.
So the bees have to work exceptionally hard. Then if you think about the queen, one thing we noticed is we stopped requeening, blanket requeening. Back in the day, we used to just go and requeen a whole apiaries with new queens, because we had this thing that if you want to maximize honey production, you need young, vigorous queens. So, but we stopped doing that for this study, and we just started to measure how long before a queen got to a point where we thought, yeah, she's not performing, let's replace her. We found that the queens last a lot longer in an insulated hive before they hit a point where you go, okay, she's not quite up to scratch. You put a new queen in, and you think, well, why would that be? But it's common sense, because if your bees have shorter lives because they're living in an uncomfortable, cold environment, heater bees consume large amounts of nectar and they've got a high metabolic stress, so they don't live as long. So every bee that dies young has to be replaced by the queen, So
Yeah.
if she doesn't have to replace as many bees, she's got a longer productive life, or fertile life. So all of a sudden now queens were productive for around 35% longer on
Okay.
average. So it's fascinating for us when we discovered. That's why I said insulation really matters to bees.
Yeah,
We
that,
keep.
that's very interesting. The queens living longer, and it would make sense, right? Because they only have so much like long-term ability to lay and capacity to lay. They go on their mating flight once and they store all that up to lay for their lifetime. What? How long would you say?
That's right.
And the queen generally would last then? 2 years, 3 years, 4?
2 years. Yeah, we can get. Well, depends. In a commercial operation, we do work our bees a lot harder.
Yeah. Yep.
But for example, right now in Australia, my daughter Sophia is running our commercial beekeeping operation, and she's got a crew there. The crew have they're just about to harvest the fourth honey super since the beginning of September
Oh wow.
off our hive. So, and that's about 80 kilograms. That'll be 80 kilograms of honey that she will have harvested off each hive. That's, I don't know, it's getting upwards towards 200 pound, I think, if you do the
Wow.
maths.
Wow.
So, uh, yeah, so we work our bees very hard, I guess is the,
Yeah.
and so but if you're not in a hobbyist environment, I would think, yeah, you could expect to get 2 to 4 years out of a queen if you're not pushing them
Wow.
too hard and live in a comfortable environment.
That's great. So, Hive IQ as it stands now and looking towards the future, where are you guys at in your operation? Obviously, you're in Australia. You're currently in the United States. I don't know if you live here for a chunk of the year or just travel here, but what are your guys' goals as a business and as a company and moving forward? And like, where are you trying to, get your hives into right now? What are some of the challenges with taking a business from Australia and trying to make it international? And um, yeah, where are you guys kind of at in that process?
Well, yeah, I came into the market in the US June last year. I think we landed our first container of product in May last year. I landed in
Okay.
the 29th of May and hired a rental car and just got on the road and started meeting people. I think since then I've driven about 65,000 miles
Wow.
around the US. Pretty much I drive everywhere. I don't fly because um, I, I'm about meeting beekeepers really,
Yeah.
and just showing them what we've created, I guess. And the response has been phenomenal. By the way, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Damn it. Oh, you
can
can
hear
hear
you.
me?
We
Yep.
can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay. It's just you've gone. Yeah. So the response has been phenomenal. So I've done, must be on my fourth lap
Wow.
driving around North America, including
Wow.
Canada. So I'm currently in Washington State. I'm heading to Canada on Friday
Okay.
to do a conference up there. So I've done a lot of conferences, probably over 30 in that time, and just
Wow.
talking to beekeepers, it's been phenomenal. I've learned a lot, but our product's been really well received, so we're really pleased, delighted really. At the You went on hold there for a second.
We're still here.
We're listening.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're still here. Just
Okay.
can you hear us?
Sorry, the thing goes on hold.
Yeah, I don't. Are you good? Can you hear us?
We can hear
Internet's
you.
very sketchy here.
Okay.
I got
Yeah,
very poor internet. I'm looking at it here. It's just very low
Okay.
here.
we can hear you. So just keep going. Do you want to
Okay.
maybe type in the chat? We're good.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. So it was obviously, and we've been on our development journey. So aggressively building up Hive systems since 2017, 2018, and we got our first release of products, which is just a standard Hive base,
Yeah.
a deep and a medium body, a lid, a queen excluder, just the basics. But now we're excited. We've got some new products that we've been working towards commercializing. Our Hive top feed is coming online, so it's a tub feeder that drops into one of our medium supers, and so beekeepers can now convert one of their supers to a feeder when they need to feed.
Mm.
And we've got some new exciting products. We've got one coming soon, which we call the bee bunker, which increases the R value of the top of the hive to about R30. So, and
Okay.
that's one of the apiary I'm setting up here right now in Washington is a large test of that particular product. So by
Okay.
spring next year, some of these new products will definitely be available. We've been working in with our sensors and our software. So we've built an enterprise beekeeping management system, which also we started aggressively developing since 2017, and we're excited about that. That's the first release is coming up in the new year. It'll be called Clover 2.0. 1.0 really, it's a
Okay.
beta release that's out there now. We've got about 1,000 beekeepers using it at the moment. We haven't promoted it because it is in beta, but so we've got some exciting new software coming in early next year, which will coincide with the launch of our sensors. So we'll have our temperature, humidity, and a microphone sensor that goes inside the hive, and hive scales. And I run my daughter now in Australia with my brother and my business partner. They run our operation off our sensor technology, so they can see real time data, what's happening. We can see when how much honey the bees are gaining on a daily basis or not. When we send the crew out there, we can run a report. We can see which hives need to be looked at. For example, brood temperature is really important. So we can see, on apiary number 4, there's 120 hives there, and 4 hives are showing signs of tracking in the wrong direction, so on a trajectory down. So and what it allows us to do traditionally, what we would do is we would go into to an apiary, and we would work the hives. We'd carry a queen bank, and we'd have to pop the top off 120 hives to find the 4 hives that needed some help. Now we know, before we arrive, we know, and we have a large identification plate on every hive. So when we walk into the apiary, we know we're looking for hive number 891, for example. We could walk around the apiary and in a minute find it, remediate it. We log the event, and we move on, and then we can watch those hives to make sure they return back to a good, healthy trajectory, temperature, humidity, weight, etc. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know I've heard of a few different options that do similar things, but what you're describing is way more in depth. So I'm really excited for that to come out, and hopefully get some of our own just to even see what that's like. That's really cool. This, if I can compare it a little bit, this is like new beekeeping technology, or I mean, it's kind of hard to not, a wooden box is a wooden box, right? And it's been good, but this is different, and this is like forward thinking. How can people, if they're listening and they're like, man, I want to get that, or I want to look into that, where can people buy HiveIQ boxes or these, in-hive monitoring systems? And then how can they get that? If you're a small-time beekeeper, what's the best way to get that? If you're a commercial operation or becoming a commercial operation, is there a better way to buy some equipment?
Yep, sure. Yeah, so we're biggie. We're very we like to support our dealers, if you like, resellers,
Hmm.
and we've got around 50, I think, across North America, 50 resellers.
Okay.
So there's first port of call is have a look on our website. You'll see a buy local tab at the top. Click on that, find your local dealer. So try to support your local dealer, I would say, first. Now, if you don't have a dealer, you can buy our product on our website online, and we'll ship it to you. We have a warehouse. We always try to maintain stock here, although we got overwhelmed last season, the first season. we kind of underestimated the demand a little and ran out of stock a couple of times, but we tried it. We got a plan to keep stock in country so that beekeepers who need hives quickly can have them within a few days from our warehouse in Kansas City. If you're a commercial beekeeper, reach out to us. You can fill it. There's a form on our website. Just reach out, and we can have a conversation one-on-one, understanding what you're trying to achieve, and then we can put together some custom orders for you. We've got a commercial price list for large volume, direct shipment. We also do a thing called a shared container model. So if you're a hobbyist, anything from an enthusiast wanting 20 plus hives up to large commercial, we've found a really cost-effective way of landing a container into each region on a periodic basis, where you need at least one full pallet, which is about 20 hives or more, and we have a host in a lot of the, for example, Alan Woods here in Washington is hosting those containers for this Northwest, and beekeepers will then come and collect here from Alan in Centralia. That's an example. Or Harold down in Georgia, Lanier Bee Barn, Adam from Foxhound Bee Supply in Alabama. So depending on where you are, what I would suggest is get on our website, just make an inquiry on the contact form, tell us what you want, and what we try to do is we coordinate it so that you can collect your hives in spring. So right now we're filling a lot of containers for spring.
What is your website for HiveIQ that people can go look into those orders?
Yeah, sure. So if you're in the US, it's HiveIQ.com. Australia is HiveIQ.com.au. And in Canada, we have a slightly different approach. We've got the Worker and Hive has stock there in Calgary, and also Bee Made in Edmonton have product. We'll have product in stock this spring, and I'm on my way to Canada right now. So if you want to come and catch up at the conference in Alberta, I'll be there in a few days.
Cool. If you're in Canada, go check it out in Alberta. Having seen these boxes and all the attachments and the prototypes and stuff you guys are working on, I saw them at the Washington State Bee Conference. It was very, very cool. That's where we met. I just asked if you would hop on a podcast and talk about your stuff. So that's how we got here. Super cool. I know we are looking into pricing and getting our own boxes and such because we're really interested in what you guys are doing. Victor, do you have any closing words for our audience as we kind of wrap up here? Whether it's towards HiveIQ stuff specifically or just beekeeping in general. Any parting words for the audience?
Not really. I mean, we do a lot of conferences, so please look up your local bee conference. Come visit. We'll be at, for example, the NABI National North American Honeybee Expo in Kentucky in January. You can see there are some offers my team have put up there for pickup for that conference. It's the only conference where we sell off the booth ourselves. Normally, we install the state-based conferences. We sell with our partners, our resellers, dealers.
Yep.
So there's that. But not really. I think we've got an exciting spring coming up for our beekeeper customers. I think that are putting their hives now in the HiveIQ hives. We're already seeing the difference between the hives that are it's starting to get cold, but not crazy yet. But we're already starting to see those benefits here. I've got some hives here in Washington State and we can see the difference. We've got them running alongside the wooden hives, and you can pop the lid, and it's like night and day. The colonies are showing no signs of clustering. So insulation really matters. That's what I'll say, is try to get your bees into a insulated hive sooner than later. And they'll benefit from that.
That's great. That's awesome. Man, this has been such a good call. Thank you, Victor, for joining us. I had one thought come to mind, and you may be able to answer it, you may not be able to answer it, but for those beekeepers who do migratory beekeeping, or they move hives and they're not physically present all the time, if they had HiveIQ hives, has there been any issue of theft? People stealing the new beekeeping, stuff on the market? Has that at all come up in any of your experience?
It hasn't come up at all, actually. I haven't had any customers report their hives stolen at this point. One thing we do in Australia, and we brand all of our equipment with our beekeeper registration.
Yep. That's good. That's what we do here as well.
You've got a choice. The best way is just to make up a plate and put it in a press, and just press your brand into the material. It makes it a lot more difficult for folk to steal in and resell your hives, because it's going to have Woods Beeco and beekeeper registration number embedded in the product. So that's something I think we could look at doing, finding someone in the US that can make those kind of CNC plates and pressing. Branding, I think, is important, but also our technology it also assists, because we've got GPS tracking and on the hives. So when we get to that stage, I think that will be a big help in anti-theft. But I haven't come across it yet. Touch wood.
Well, that's good, and I hope you don't come across it. That would just be best for everybody to not have that issue. So, thank you for joining us on this episode of Teach Me Bees, HiveIQ. Very fascinating. Go check them out, HiveIQ.com. Get some new beekeeping equipment. Victor, thank you for joining us this morning, and can't wait to hear in the spring about all the new stuff you guys have coming up.
On the show, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.